Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And that THQ Nordic 10th anniversary event just took place, and there was actually some pretty interesting titles announced here. Of course, THQ Nordic owns a ton of studios, which means they also own a lot of different game-related IP, and, well, it looks like they're bringing back some fan favorites here that I think fans are going to be really happy about. I know that I'm personally happy about a couple of these, so we will talk about that today. Now, also, it looks like a couple of Xbox first-party games was uncovered thanks to that Nvidia Geforce leak. We did talk about that Nvidia Geforce Now leak earlier this week, which has since been confirmed to be a legitimate leak. Well, that list just keeps on giving, as now we have some more information on a couple of upcoming first-party Xbox titles, so we're going to go over all that as well. Let's just get right into the video though, starting off with a collection of games that we did talk about earlier this year, being the Castlevania Game Boy Advance collection. Ratings of this collection did pop up earlier this year, but now, as spotted by Gematsu, the Taiwan Digital Game Rating Committee has now also rated the Castlevania Advance collection. And this is where things get really good, but right now it is being rated for PC, Switch, Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4. So this isn't just some Nintendo Switch game, but it looks like, as of this moment, that it's going to be heading to all platforms. Now, nothing is necessarily 100% guaranteed just yet, but I think that we are going to get an official announcement for this collection sometime here soon. And this is a really good thing for multiple reasons. One, the Castlevania Game Boy Advance games are some of the better entries in the entire franchise. And with the Metroidvania genre just kind of exploding in recent years, I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in a collection like this. More so, though, the Castlevania Game Boy Advance games are pretty hard to get if you want to get an official copy. Authentic versions of this game are quite expensive. I believe Area of Sorrow, as an example, I think that one goes well over $100 if you want to buy an authentic version of that game. So having an official collection like this will just make these games much more accessible, and that's only a good thing because, like I said before, these are just good overall games. Plus, Game Boy Advance games have just aged so incredibly well, and that includes these Castlevania games. And yeah, hopefully we get an official announcement for these games sometime here soon. Next up, let's talk about the upcoming God of War Ragnarok.